The funny thing about big life moments is you never know which one will turn into the story people retell for the rest of your life. I thought my graduation day would be that moment. A cap, gown, shaky smile, all the stuff people post online with captions like, "We made it." Instead, my graduation became the day I learned exactly where I stood in my family. And how fast family can turn into strangers with your number saved. It's wild, honestly. I'm standing in my tiny apartment 3 months after graduation, still paying off the parking tickets and ramen debt from getting through school, when my phone lights up with a group text from my sisters. I hadn't heard from them since the day of my ceremony. Not a congrats, not a how are you breathing, not even a lazy thumbs up emoji. Nothing. So when their text popped up, my first thought wasn't, "Oh, nice, they miss me." What's more like, "Oh, wow, who died or who needs bail money?" And I wasn't wrong. They weren't checking on me. They weren't apologizing. They weren't even pretending to care about the fact that I had clawed my way through for years of school. More duct tape and prayer than money. They wanted $4,500. Not borrowed, if you cannot please help. Not, "We're sorry, we've been distant." Just a clean, bold demand like I was some savings account they forgot the password to. And I remember staring at my phone thinking, do I laugh, cry, or just pretend I'm in a tunnel? 'Cause here's the part that makes it even crazier. These were the identical sisters who ghosted my graduation. The identical sisters who, when I walked across that stage, weren't sitting in the crowd cheering. They weren't outside waiting with flowers or ugly balloons. They weren't anywhere. I kept glancing toward the seats I'd saved for them and seeing nothing but strangers clapping for their own kids. So yeah, 3 months later, they show up in my notifications asking for almost $5,000, like we're tight. And when I said no, he called the police. I know, sounds fake. Sounds like one of those internet stories with the comments yelling "cap" before they even finish reading. But that's precisely what happened. And if you want to know how it got to that, how graduation turned into betrayal, how no turned into 911, then buckle in. Because this story doesn't start with the group text, it starts years earlier. Back when I still believed blood automatically meant love. Let's rewind. I'm the youngest, the caboose, the oops baby. The one thing people forget is that I've grown now until they see me at the Thanksgiving table paying my own bills and not asking for extra rolls. Growing up, used to think being the youngest meant being protected. That your older siblings were like extra parents who had your back because they'd already been through the mess you were walking into. That's what TV says. Anyway, real life had other plans. My sisters, I'll call them Tasha and Renee. Here were about 6 and 8 years older than me. Close enough in age to be a team. Far enough from me to be a different generation in the house. They had memories together that I wasn't part of. Inside jokes, secret alliances. And the kind of bond that forms when you survive childhood together. By the time I was old enough to notice things, they were already halfway out the door. They didn't hate me. It was something quieter and colder. They just didn't need me. And when you're a kid, being unnecessary feels a lot like being invisible. Our dad left early, went to find himself. As people like to say when a man disappears and turns his kids into a single mom's full-time job. He wasn't dead. He wasn't evil. He was just absent. Which in some ways is worse, because you keep waiting for someone who never arrives. Mom worked a lot. She was the kind of woman who stretched one paycheck like it was elastic. She didn't talk about stress, didn't cry around us, didn't ask for pity. She just did things. Paid the rent, made the dinners, threw on a brave face, then fell asleep on the couch with her shoes still on. She was our son. Everything circled around her survival. Tasha and Renee resented that. Not loudly, not in obvious ways. You could feel it the way they rolled their eyes when Mom asked for help, the way they disappeared when bills were due, the way they thought the world owed them softness because life at home wasn't soft. When I was about 10, they were teenagers. That's the age where they're half-grown, half-child, and fully convinced they're right about everything. They wanted freedom. Mom needed help. That tension broke our home into quiet wars. I became Mom's shadow. Not because I was forced, it's because I didn't want her to drown alone. I'd sit at the kitchen table while she sorted bills, watching her eyebrows knit together like she was doing algebra with her soul. I didn't understand the numbers then, but I understood what they meant. I learned early that "we're okay" can be a lie people tell kids to keep them from panicking. And I also learned that if we were going to be okay, I had to be part of it. Tasha and Renee treated school like a hallway you walk through on your way to real life. I treated it like a ladder out. I was the kid who put her report cards on the fridge herself because mom was too tired to notice. I was the kid who joined after-school programs just to have more time in a warm building with books. I was the kid who loved teachers because they asked how I felt in a way nobody at home had time for. But none of that happened without cost. When you're poor, every dream is a luxury item. Education isn't just go to class and do your homework. It's deciding what to sacrifice so you can even keep showing up. There were moments I remember too clearly, like 8th grade when everybody started getting new shoes for back to school. I asked mom for a pair, and she vanished into her room for a while. She came out with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and said we'd figure it out. The next day, she was wearing the same sneakers she'd had since I was little. But now the soles were separating, and she was taping them. I understood without her saying it. She gave me her shoe money. Or my sophomore year in high school when I got accepted into an advanced program that required a weekend fee. I was so excited I almost couldn't breathe. I ran home waving the paper. Mom was proud, but I could see the math starting to add up behind her eyes before she could say no. I told her I didn't want to go. I made up some excuse about friends doing something else. She didn't push. She just hugged me and said I was a good kid. That night, I heard her crying in the kitchen when she thought I was asleep, so I started working early, babysitting, bagging groceries. Anything that let me contribute without pretending I wasn't a kid. And my sisters. They left. Tasha moved in, with her boyfriend at 18, storming out in a cloud of perfume and anger. Renee followed a year later. Suddenly, the house was quieter, but the bills weren't. Mom had fewer mouths, sure, but she also had fewer hands. That's how I became more than a daughter. I became the person Mom leaned on without meaning to. I listened to her vent about her job. I made dinners. I handled a few repairs. I learned to read utility bills the way some kids learn video games. Meanwhile, my sisters called home when they needed something. Groceries, rent help, a place to crash when boyfriends turned sour. Emotional support when they got into fights. They came back with tears and drama, expecting Mom to be a safe haven whenever their lives got messy. Mom took them in every time because Mom loved us. And because she didn't know what else to do. I watched that cycle over and over. It hardened. Something in me early, a sense that love in our family flowed upward, toward them, not down toward me. When I graduated high school with honors, my mom cried into my neck and called me her miracle. My sisters weren't there. They had work, they said. One of them posted a late "proud of you" on Facebook, like a scheduled tweet. It hurt, but I swallowed it. Because I told myself, they're busy, they're grown, they don't mean anything by it. College was my line in the sand. I wanted a future where Mom didn't have to tape her shoes shut. Where I didn't have to lie about not wanting opportunities. Where our family story didn't end in exhaustion. I got into a state university, not Ivy League, not a movie montage, just far enough to feel like another world. We didn't have money for a dorm, so I commuted. I worked in the library in the mornings, at a diner at night, and did tutoring on weekends. I walked around campus with a backpack full of textbooks and a stomach full of caffeine. I watched other students complain about their parents being annoying. And I wondered what it felt like to have parents who had time to be irritating. I studied until my eyes felt grainy. I missed birthdays, parties, everything. Love life, please. I barely had a relationship with sleep. There were moments I almost quit, like junior year, when Mom got sick. Not hospital sick, but the kind of chronic, grinding exhaustion that makes a person smaller over time. She'd smile and say she was fine, but she wasn't. She was carrying a whole lifetime on her back, and her body was starting to tell the truth. I took on more shifts, more responsibility, more everything. My sisters came around a little when Mom was sick, but it was performative. Big gestures, loud concern, then disappearing again once the crisis cooled. I kept going anyway, because that's the thing about being the responsible one. Nobody asks if you're okay. They just assume you will be. By senior year, I was running on habit and hope. Graduation became my lighthouse. Not because I thought it would fix everything, but because I wanted one day where I didn't feel like the undercard. One day when Mom could sit in the crowd and see that all the sacrifices meant something. One day when my sisters would have to look at me and understand I did this. I made it. And maybe they'd see me, so I invited them. I sent the details weeks early. I reminded them. I even offered to save seats. I didn't ask for money or gifts. I just wanted them their present. Human, acknowledging that I existed. They said they'd come. I believed them. That was my mistake. Graduation morning felt like the end of a marathon you didn't know you were running until your lungs started giving out. I woke up before my alarm. My body was anxious in a quiet way, as if it knew something important was happening, even though my brain was still foggy. The sky was soft and pale. I kept checking my phone like it was going to reveal some secret I missed. Mom was already up, trying to pin her hair in the mirror while insisting she didn't need help. She'd bought a dress the week before, nothing flashy, just a neat navy one that made her look younger somehow. I'd never seen her so excited about anything that wasn't us surviving. She kept saying, "I can't believe it," then shaking her head and smiling, as if she were holding a dream too fragile to touch. I wore my cap and gown and tried not to cry in the bathroom. Not because I was sad, because I was full of exhaustion, full of pride, full of every night I wanted to quit. And DID in single quotes, T. We drove to campus early. Mom clutched her purse like it was a lifeline. I could tell she was nervous. Big crowds weren't her thing. Spending money wasn't her thing either. So the fact she'd paid for parking without complaining was an act of love all by itself. We found the entrance. I walked toward the student side. Mom headed for the seating area before I split off. I asked her if my sisters had texted. She said no, but they'd probably be there already. So I went to line up with my class, heart thumping, scanning the stands from a distance. At first, I didn't panic. Graduation seating is chaos. People come late. They wander. They're trying to find family. I told myself they'd show up, but time creeps in weird ways. When you're waiting for someone who matters, the ceremony started. People stood. The speaker did the whole class of 20-something thing. Cheers rose like waves. I kept looking. My saved seat stayed empty. Then the graduates started walking. I walked too. Spot in line, fingers sweating. I could see Mom waving, her face a mix of pride and disbelief. She had her phone out, recording like a starstruck fan. I smiled at her. That smile was genuine, but the ache underneath it was growing, every few steps. I kept hoping I'd spot my sisters rushing in, apologizing, and throwing a peace sign. Nothing. When my name was called, the applause hit me like a warm gust. I crossed the stage. I shook hands. I took the diploma cover. And in that split second, all I wanted was to look out and see my whole family shouting like I mattered. Instead, I saw Mom alone in every sense. After, graduates spilled out onto the lawn in a messy ocean of caps flying and families hugging. I found my mom immediately. She collided into me in a hug so tight I felt small again. She was crying openly, not bothering to hide it. "This is your day," she kept saying. "Look at you." For a second, I let myself live only in that. Then the questions started. Where are the girls? Relatives asked, did they come yet? Mom asked, her voice trying to stay light. I checked my phone, no messages. I called. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. I texted both of them separately. Hey, where are you? Ceremony's done. Are you okay? Nothing. Minutes turned into an hour of awkward smiles and empty explanations. Mom's pride started to blur into confusion. She kept saying maybe they got stuck in traffic. Then, maybe they're parking. Then softer, maybe something happened. Watching her protect them with excuses, even in their absence, made something twist inside me. I was exhausted. I had no more emotional budget to cover for other people's choices, so I stopped trying by the time we drove home. My cap was crushed on my lap, and my diploma cover felt heavier than it should. Single quotes, V. Mom didn't say much. She didn't want to ruin the day. I didn't either. But silence is a loud language in cars. That night, my sisters finally texted, not apologies, not concern. Tasha said, phone died. Couldn't make it. Congrats, though. Renee said, sorry, stuff came up. Proud of you. Stuff came up, that was it. No call. No explanation. No effort. Just vague fog. And I don't know why that was the moment everything inside me clicked into place. Maybe because I had spent my whole life giving them grace. Because I've defended them to myself over and over. Because I'd carried a fantasy that one day they'd show up for me the way I'd been showing up for everybody else since. I was 10. But in that moment, I realized something painfully simple. People do what matters to them, and I didn't matter to them, so I did something I'd never done before. I let the hurt land. I didn't respond that night. I didn't do a lol. Totally get it. I didn't send heart emojis. I didn't smooth it over for them. I just let it be what it was. They didn't follow up, not the next day, not the week after, not even when photos went up online. Life went on. And they acted like missing my graduation was just a scheduling conflict, not a character reveal. I spent the summer job hunting, trying to turn my degree into something that could keep our heads above water. I got a decent entry-level position with benefits. Nothing glamorous, but stable. And stability is a luxury when you grew up the way we did. Mom was proud. She told everybody. The family silence continued. It wasn't a dramatic cutoff. No fight. No official, we're done. Just a slow, quiet withdrawal like a tide pulling back. I stopped calling first. Stopped texting. Stopped being the emotional glue. And it was shocking how little changed for them. Then came the group. Text. 3 months after graduation, the message arrived on a regular Tuesday. Not a holiday, not a birthday, not even a weekend, just a random afternoon while I was reheating leftover pasta. Still wearing my work badge because I'd been too tired to take it off. The group text was from Tasha. Then Renee quickly followed, like it was a coordinated tag team. They were in trouble. Of course they were. Tasha said she had rent overdue and would be evicted any day. Renee told her that her car needed major repairs or she'd lose her job. Between the two of them, they landed on $4,500, not $200. Not, can you help with a bill? $4,500. I reread the text a few times because my brain actually refused to process it at first. It felt like someone handing me a bill with my name on it for a party I didn't attend. I asked a simple question. Why are you asking me? Renee replied quickly, because I have a job now. Because I was doing well. Because we're family. Because Mom couldn't afford it. Because they knew I'd understand. That last one made me laugh out loud in my kitchen. Understand what? Understand being abandoned. Understand being ignored. Understand what it means to show up for everyone while no one shows up for you. They didn't ask how I was doing. Didn't ask if I had. Savings didn't even acknowledge that they'd vanished on the biggest day of my life. It was like they were talking to a vending machine. Insert sisterhood. Receive cash. So I said no. Not cruelly. Not dramatically. Just plain. I told them I didn't have that kind of money. I told them I was still paying off debt and helping Mom where I could. I told them I wasn't comfortable being treated like the family emergency fund. The second I hit send, I felt a weird mix of guilt and relief, like I'd stepped outside a role I didn't realize I'd been cast into. And then the tone changed. You know when someone's polite mask just slides off mid-conversation? Tasha got sharp. She said I was selfish, that I was forgetting where I came from, that I was acting like I was better than them now. Renee piled on, saying I owed them because they raised me too. That one stung differently. They hadn't raised me. They'd left me. Mom raised me. I raised myself. But I didn't even argue. I just repeated no. Then came the threat. Tasha said if I didn't give them the money, they'd handle it another way. I thought it was a bluff, some emotional bullying. So I stopped responding. 20 minutes later, my doorbell rang. I was confused. Not scared yet, just annoyed. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, 2 police officers were standing there. Not one. 2.professional.com. But there my brain short-circuited. I looked behind them like they had the wrong apartment. One of them asked for me by name. I said yes. Trying to keep my voice steady, they said they'd received a call about a domestic disturbance and financial coercion. Someone reported that I was withholding money that belonged to them and that they felt unsafe. It took me a second to actually understand what I was hearing. Then I realized, with a sort of stunned nausea, my sisters called the police on me because I said no to giving them $4,500. I almost laughed, almost cried, almost slammed the door. I did none of those things. I just stood there like my body had forgotten how to be a person. I told the officers there was no disturbance, no coercion, no money that belonged to anyone else. It was a family dispute over a request I refused. One officer looked like he'd seen this kind of nonsense before. The other seemed mildly embarrassed to be in my hallway. They asked if anyone else was in the apartment. I said no. They checked anyway, standard procedure, then came back out. They told me I had a right to refuse to give anyone money, that this was civil, not criminal, that they were closing the report. Then, gently, they asked if I felt safe. That question was almost humiliating in itself, because I didn't feel physically unsafe. I felt emotionally robbed, but I told them yes, because what else do you say? After they left, I locked the door, leaned on it, and let myself breathe. My phone buzzed immediately. A message from Renee. See, you want to make things hard? We can make things hard too. There it was, the truth, clean and ugly. This wasn't about desperation, it was about control. They had expected me to fold, to feel guilty, to play the role I always played, the youngest. The soft one, the one who says yes even when she's bleeding, when I didn't. They tried to punish me, and something in me finally snapped, not into rage, but into clarity, because if they could weaponize the police to try to scare me into giving them money, then what was left of the idea that they loved me? Nothing. I didn't respond. I screenshotted everything, and for the first time in my life, I stopped feeling like I needed to keep the peace. Because peace built on your silence isn't peace, it's captivity. The weeks after that were weirdly quiet. Not because I was okay, because I was done. When you grow up being the one who absorbs chaos, you get addicted to solving problems you didn't create. You think love means bending until you fit everyone else's needs. So choosing not to chase them, not to explain, not to apologize for having a spine felt like walking on a leg you'd never used, but kept walking. Tasha and Renee sent a few more messages. Half insults, half guilt traps. Long paragraphs about family loyalty, short ones about how I'd regret this one day. They tried to recruit Mom to Mom called me stressed. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse, but I could hear the strain in her voice, the way mothers get caught between children and try to hold all the fractured pieces in one hand. She said they told her I'd changed. I told her I had not into something bad, into something honest. I explained what happened, including the police. Mom went silent so long I thought the call dropped. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. She said she didn't know they'd do that. Then, after a long, heavy pause, she said something that knocked the wind out of me. I'm sorry you've always had to be the strong one. I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear that until I started crying in my work clothes. Mom didn't defend them this time. She didn't make excuses. She was hurt too, not just for me, but for herself. Because their behavior was a mirror of something she'd been quietly afraid of for years, that they didn't just take from her, they took from anyone who let them. We didn't have a dramatic family meeting. We didn't do a movie-style confrontation. We just started living without their noise. And in that quiet, my life began to stretch. I focused on my job. I took a certification course at night, the kind I used to dream about but never had energy for. I started saving. Not massive amounts, but enough to feel like I was building something instead of constantly plugging holes. I also started therapy. Not because I had a breakdown, though I was close, because I wanted to understand. Why no felt like a crime in my body? Turns out, when you're raised in a system where love equals sacrifice, boundaries feel like betrayal. You think you're being mean when you're just being human. Therapy helped me name things. I wasn't responsible for my sister's choices. I wasn't selfish for protecting my future. I wasn't wrong for wanting reciprocity. I started practicing boundaries in small ways. Saying no to overtime when I was exhausted. Turning down helpful favors at work that were really just people dumping tasks on me. Not explaining myself to the point of exhaustion just to make others comfortable. The more I did, the more my spine grew. Then something unexpected happened. About 6 months after graduation, got a promotion, not a giant one. But my salary bumped that mom enough, and I both exhaled. I took her out to dinner, an authentic restaurant, not fast food, and watched her look around like she couldn't believe she belonged there. We laughed. We talked. We felt light. And I realized how much emotional weight my sisters had been putting on our lives without permission. They were storms we'd kept inviting. Inside now, the windows were closed. Tasha and Renee didn't disappear forever. People like that rarely do. They popped up when they had needs. A year later, Renee messaged me again. This time softer. She said she wanted to talk. Didn't respond immediately. I didn't rush in. When I finally did, I kept it simple. I was open to a relationship as long as it was respectful. If not, I wasn't interested. She never replied. Tasha tried a different approach, sending a half apology wrapped in a but. You know how life is, Bo. I told her the police incident changed things. That trust doesn't bounce back because someone wants it. Kid 2, she called me dramatic. I called it consequences. And that was that. The redemption in my story isn't that I got rich, or that my sisters came crawling back, or that I got to throw their selfishness in there. Faces, the redemption is quieter. It's me waking up without dread. It's mom smiling more. It's me realizing that I can love people and still say no. I didn't become hard. I became whole. Here's what I learned. The kind of lesson you don't want to learn, but you're better for knowing. Some people don't love you. They love what you do for them. And the moment you stop doing it, they call it betrayal. They call it changing. They call it being selfish. They might even call the police. But all you're really doing is stepping out of the role they built. Their comfort on graduation was supposed to be my victory lap. Instead, it was my wake-up call. Not because they missed it, because missing it showed me exactly who they were. And the weird thing, I'm grateful now, because if they had shown up that day with fake smiles and balloons, I'd have kept believing in a version of them that didn't exist. I might have kept bleeding my future into their present. Sometimes, the most significant gift someone gives you is showing you their truth early enough for you to choose yourself now for the twist, the part that still makes me shake my head. 2 years after that police call, I ran into one of the officers from that day at a downtown community event. I recognized him instantly. He didn't recognize me at first. We talked casually. He asked what I did. I told him I was now working in my field, that I was doing well, and that my mom was doing well. He smiled and said he was glad. Then he paused, like he was placing a memory. Wait, he said, weren't you the college grad whose sisters called us because you wouldn't hand over rent money? I laughed so hard I almost dropped my drink. Even he remembered. Not because it was traumatic for him, but because it was that ridiculous. And suddenly, I saw it from the outside. Two grown women trying to bully their youngest sister into funding their lives, then dragging law enforcement into it. When they couldn't dot it was embarrassing for them, but it was freeing for me. Because if a stranger could see how wrong it was, why was I still questioning myself? So if you're watching this and you're the one who always shows up, always fixes, always gives, until you're empty, let me ask you something. What would happen if you stopped? Who would still be there? And who would disappear the moment your yes ran out? Think about it. Because the people who genuinely love you won't punish you for having boundaries. They'll respect them. They'll clap for you whether you're helpful to them or not. They'll show up. And if they don't, you still get to graduate into a life that doesn't require their approval. Welcome, story lovers. From where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travels. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories and new videos.